On May 13, 1981, 60-year-old Pope John Paul II, 2.5 years into an already historic papacy, hopped into his open-air vehicle to ride through St. Peter's Square and greet the ecstatic crowd. Thousands from all over the world had gathered for the pontiff's weekly public audience: American and Italian, Chinese and German, English and African, Turkish and Bulgarian. It was a beautiful Wednesday in Rome. It was also a special day spiritually. May 13th was the feast day of Our Lady of Fatima, hearkening back to the day in 1917 that began a series of remarkable events connected to the Virgin Mary, to whom this pope had dedicated his life and papacy. The fact that this pontiff was Polish had alone made his papacy historic. When Karol Wojtyła was chosen the 264th heir to the chair of St. Peter in October 1978, the Polish cardinal was the first non-Italian pope in 455 years, and the first Slavic pope ever. More powerful still, his native Poland was the heart of the communist bloc in Eastern Europe, and the one spot in the Soviet atheistic empire which the American president would unforgettably call an evil empire, where the communist war on religion had failed. If you choose the example of what we Poles have in our pockets and in our shops, communism has done very little for us, said Lech Wałęsa, the hero of Poland's anti-Soviet solidarity movement, and one of millions of Poles whose admiration of John Paul II bordered on veneration. But if you choose the example of what is in our souls, I answer that communism has done very much for us. In fact, our souls contain exactly the opposite of what they wanted. They wanted us not to believe in God, and our churches are full. These were powerful words that Wałęsa's favorite American president, Ronald Reagan, would invoke as an indictment of the Moscow menace. The Poles' fidelity to the church rather than to Moscow angered communist authorities. The stunning selection of this Polish pope made them even angrier. In the 1970s, under the détente presidencies of Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, and Jimmy Carter, and the Ostpolitik papacy of Pope Paul VI, the Soviets picked up nearly a dozen satellite states around the world. These were major Cold War victories. Then the Vatican conclave chose the Polish Pope. The advent of this pontiff threatened the Soviets' global ambitions, particularly when paired with the new leadership that came to Washington under President Reagan 2 years later. With characteristic vitriol, one Soviet publication in early 1981 denounced John Paul II as malicious, lowly, perfidious, and backward, and as a toady of the American militarists who was seeking to undermine communism with his overseas accomplices and new boss in the White House.